Our next topic is the market overt concept. Wait, don't switch the channel. I'll explain this. The Jerusalem District Court, in a very dramatic decision, accepted yesterday the claims of the residents of an illegal outpost, Mitzpe Kramim, ordering to give it a legal status of a settlement, even though it was built on private Palestinian lands. Mitzpe Kramim was established in the late 1990s in Gush Etzion, but was moved to its current location on land allocated by the government's settlement division after a 1999 deal. But in 2011, Palestinians petitioned the High Court of Justice and claimed they were the legal owners of the land. And in a precedent-setting ruling, Judge Arnon Darel of the District Court accepted the claim of the residents, basing it on what I said before, the market overt concept, in which transactions conducted in good faith under certain conditions are considered valid, even if they have certain legal faults, such as in the case of the sale of stolen goods. In this case, we're talking Palestinian-owned lands. The ruling means that the outpost should not be evacuated, despite the fact that the deal was faulty. Debra, your reaction?
Extremely disturbing. What can I tell you? Extremely disturbing, but of course not surprising, given the fact that the Knesset just passed a regularization law, and of course you have Mendelblatt's new interpretation of this market regulation clause that you talked about. By the way, for folks who are interested in getting involved in the legal weeds here, there's great information in depth offered about this by Peace Now and Americans for Peace Now. You can read all about it. But the fact is, it boils down to this. Let's boil it down to the fundamental fact that it used to be the policy of the Israeli government that these illegal outposts had to be evacuated. And in terms of this, in terms of these legal battles that had been going on for years, that was the position of the Israeli government. After this new position that was articulated by Attorney General Mendelblatt, suddenly the Israeli government switches and it says, in every case possible, we are going to try to legalize these illegal settlements. So you have a fundamental switch by the Israeli government in support of, again, we come back to the rule of law, right? Violation of the rule of law, the creation of these illegal settlements, which the government now wants to see legalized whenever possible.
Ruthie.
The issue of private Palestinian lands is slightly misleading. First of all, let's talk about the settlers in question. They had already been evacuated from a different location and moved. So the good faith clause has to do with the good faith. They were told by the Israeli government that they could move to this new location. That's where the good faith comes in. They moved to a place that they were encouraged by the Israeli government, so it's a little hard to turn around and punish them. Okay, that's as far as the settlers.
They were building without permits. Okay, they were still committing a crime, whether it was on whose land it was. They were still building.
But the government enabled them to do it. So in that case, those
the government did not give them
permits to the new place.
Yeah, they did not.
Now the other issue,
they were building there without permits.
It's the illegal Palestinian, private Palestinian land.
Okay.
There are also, as you said, Peace Now has information. So do many think tanks. Other think tanks have information on this, like the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. That the issue of private Palestinian lands goes back to Jordan. There are many complicated legal issues here, but one less complicated issue is the fact that the Palestinians petitioning the court about private land. There is no Palestinian who is claiming that land. If there were a person who came along and said, this is my land, he would likely be compensated financially. The thing is, these lands were just empty and nobody was claiming them. This is a political move, and there's nobody claiming them. There's just Palestinians saying, we own this.
30 seconds before we go for a break.
Ruthie, that's an absolute lie that no Palestinians are claiming that land. There are Palestinians who had registered that land with Israeli authorities. What happens to Palestinians who build without permits? The Bedouin, let's say in Area C, when they are transferred there by the Israeli government and they build without permits, something extremely different than happens to these Israeli settlers. There is one set of laws, one set of practices that applies to Israeli settlers, and a different set to Palestinians. What is that called, Ruthie, when you have a different set of laws that are applied to Israelis and Palestinians. And I'm afraid that word starts with the letter A.
And Ruthie, you wanted to respond to what Debra said about the eviction of Israelis from settlements and from Palestinians.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that there aren't two sets of laws because Israelis have repeatedly been evacuated from illegal outposts and legal settlements for many years now. So that's not true.
Okay, I want to show you something that Naftali Bennett said, the leader of the Jewish Home, after this was announced. He said the ruling is an important achievement for settling Judea and Samaria. The achievement came after determined action by the residents and Justice Minister Ayel Shaked, who worked tirelessly to find a legal solution for the authorization of the settlement. No more evacuating dozens of families because of the whim of left-wing organizations. Whoever wants to change can change at the ballot box, not in court. Debra, let's address that. If you want to make a change, do it during an election. The right consistently claims in Israel that if you want to change Israeli policy, and Israeli policy today is right-wing, it means settling in the West Bank, change the government. That's what democracy is about.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, rule of law as it currently exists should be applied. But you know, as far as the right wing is right. I mean, they're coming to office. They're changing laws. They are acting against international law, obviously, and previous Israeli law. And yeah, I mean, if that's what Israelis want, that's what they will rule. That's what they will do at the ballot box. And we have indications that that's what they're already doing. And we're creating a situation on the ground where Israel is. You know, let's look at the broader picture. We're moving toward annexation of the West Bank, which is fundamentally against Israel's interest as a Jewish and democratic state. And as we make that move, we're getting toward a situation where Israel, it's hard to describe what's happening in the West Bank as using anything other than the A word that Israel has tried to avoid for so many years, and anyone in the pro-Israel community has tried to avoid. But it's getting to the point that what else can we possibly call it?
By the way, Bennett also says, he said there in that tweet, no more evacuating dozens of families because of the whim of left-wing organizations, Ruthie. So, do left-wing organizations, is that all they want to do, evacuate families? Or do they also want to look out for...
Let me answer that by answering one thing. You said the A word, which we know what that is. And how about the P word, peace? Okay. The Israeli public...
By the way, the A word, can we just say the A word, apartheid? Go ahead.
I'd like to talk about the P word. You know, you're from Peace Now. The fact that there is a reason that there is what you call a right-wing government. I would call it a centrist government, but okay, you call it right-wing. It's no accident. God. Okay, it's no accident that it's in power.
Do you want to have the Hebron settlers in power? How much more right-wing can we get, Ruthie? This isn't right-wing enough for you.
Wait. Because I don't happen to think the Likud is that right-wing, but okay, that's a different argument. That's a different argument.
Let's bring
what
it
I would like to say is, wait a minute, it is no accident that this government is in power because the Israeli public that for decades has been begging to have peace agreements and has signed peace agreements and has withdrawn from territory, has realized that the Palestinians have no intention, the Palestinian leadership have no intention of having peace with Israel. They do not recognize the existence of the state of Israel, and therefore there is no point in pretending that the settlements are some kind of obstacle to it. It has nothing to do with it. It is Israel's existence here that is an obstacle. And therefore, that is why at the ballot box, the left keeps losing.
Okay, and by the way, you're speaking about Deborah's organization, Americans for Peace Now, but Peace Now, the Israeli branch, today posted that the court today chose to align itself with the values of the annexation and dispossession project of the Israeli government headed by the Jewish Home Party. So does it lead to annexation, this decision by the court?
I don't think it necessarily leads to annexation. I think that what happens, and in this situation here, this happened since 1967, but you could say also since 1948, is that Israel buys time. Things in the region change, things in the world change. Before the Soviet Union fell, there was one set of international relations. Today, you have a different administration in the White House, for example, and you have Israel forging ties with other Arab countries in the region. So at the moment, what you're doing is you're trying to live with the best status quo as possible and see what changes can bring about a regional peace.
As some people say, manage the conflict.
Ruthie, may I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Debra. You can. Go ahead.
Ruthie, may I ask you a question here? On exactly this issue of annexation. What do you think about annexation? Is annexation fine? I mean, do you think it's okay that we are pursuing this march toward annexation? What is your opinion of the end goal here, which I would fundamentally argue is annexation? Will you condemn that publicly on television?
My hope for the end goal will be that the Palestinians will change their leadership and get so that we can get to the point where there can be a proper peace agreement and make that agreement about sharing territory. But at the moment, it's not about land, and therefore annexation is not the solution, nor is the opposite the solution. This is not a conflict about land. When it stops being it stops being a conflict about religion, culture, and all the rest of it, in 5 minutes, we will come to an agreement.
Do you agree with that, Debra, that it's not about land at all? It's about religion?
No, of course I don't agree with it, and I want to address the alternative facts that we heard from Ruthie.
Yeah, in the minute that we have left, go ahead.
This ridiculousness that we hear from the right wing that says the Palestinians are rejectionists, they don't want peace, we've tried it for years, blah blah blah. The PLO has officially recognized the state of Israel. Remind me again, Ruthie, when Israel has recognized the state of Palestine. Tell me who is really rejectionist, who wants peace, who has shown that they are willing to come to the table. Obviously, we haven't gotten to an agreement yet, but if you believe that it's because of Palestinian rejectionism and that it has nothing to do with the Israeli government, you are living in an alternative world of alternative facts, and I don't know what to do.
In an alternative world from peace now, that's for sure, yes.
All right.